Hi, this is Matt from tracyandmatt.co.uk and from unboxings.com, and here I have the HTC HD2, probably one of the most eagerly awaited handsets of the year. Need to just quickly point out, obviously this isn't the final retail packaging, but we do believe that we have the final ROM, certainly do have the final hardware, and we believe this will be the shipped ROM, although it is possibly subject to change, but we'll kind of talk about that when we come to actually look at the OS in a bit more detail. But the handset sits immediately on top. As you can see, it's quite a large slab, and we'll look at that in a bit more detail in just a second. Also in the box we have a UK 3-pin plug and the pretty standard HTC charger, which is a USB style. See that with pretty much all of the HTC handsets all the same. We then have a USB to micro USB sync charge cable. HTC have decided to go to micro USB. I think that's going to be a sort of a step that they're going to take now with all of their handsets, but the HD2 does have that micro USB. Personally not a fan, and I prefer the mini, but I think everything's going that way. And then we have a headset, which is pretty standard for the standard HTC fare really. It's a 4-pole 3.5mm jack with an inline, let's take this rubber band off here, with an inline microphone with controls. So you have some media controls there, so you can skip tracks forwards and backwards, play and pause your recording, also answer the phone and hang up. But that's also has an inline microphone there, and then obviously the headphones themselves on the other end. Again, pretty standard for HTC. They aren't bad. You're probably going to want to use your own headphones if you want to listen to music, but the headset is there, it's quite handy. That's all we do have in the box. As I say, this isn't full retail packaging, although I would expect the contents to be pretty similar. Whether or not there'll be a case, we believe there will be a case with the final retail, and obviously there'll be some manuals and other bits and pieces. So we'll look at the handset itself. As you can see, as I've already mentioned already, it is a pretty large handset and it's fairly weighty, although it's not as heavy as I expected, or perhaps that it may look, only weighing in at 157 grams, which isn't bad. So on the front, obviously very much dominating the front there, we have a 4.3-inch touchscreen, which is capacitive, and it's WVGA, so it's 480 by 800 pixels. Massive screen. I don't think I know of any other device that has such a large screen, certainly beyond the TGO one, and yeah, certainly the largest around at the moment, I would say. Below that we have a series of keys, have phone keys on either end, and then we have a home button, a Windows start key, and then a back button. Swinging around onto the left hand side then, we have an up-down volume control rocker and nothing else on that side. On the bottom we have that 3.5mm headphone socket. That's where we plug in our headphones or headsets, and as I say, we can use our own. And then we do have the micro USB connector for sync and charge, and then the microphone itself is just next to that. There is actually nothing really to see, well, nothing at all on the right hand side, and nothing on the actual top of the handset. You'll notice that there are no dedicated camera buttons, and to use the camera it's all done through the touchscreen, which is a bit of a shame. It would be nice to have a button on the side for the camera, but HTC have chosen not to include that. Bit of a pity in my opinion. On the back we have a 5-megapixel autofocus camera, and thankfully we do at last have the dual LED flash. Next to that we do have the loudspeaker. I mentioned the LED flash there. It's one of the first handsets in quite some time for HTC to actually have a flash, and that's something that I know a lot of people have really wanted. There's no mirror on the back for self-portrait, but obviously it's quite shiny around the area there, around the actual camera itself, so maybe you could achieve your self-portraits by looking at your own reflection. No big deal perhaps. Then obviously we have the battery compartment, which just pop open now. It is rather tricky to open, so you have a metal back plate which covers over the battery compartment, and the battery just pops in obviously in this place here, like so. You do have to remove the battery to get to the SIM card, which is pretty standard and probably desirable in fact. The SIM card goes in there like so, and then we actually have the micro SD card socket there too, and obviously that just plugs in there. Supports up to 32 gig micro SD HC. We also have a little reset button there. The little red bit is actually the reset button. Although interestingly, we don't have a stylus, so you would have to, use a pen or a pencil or something to push that reset button. And to be honest, if you're taking the back off to reset, you might as well just pop the battery out and pop it back in again. It's just as easy. So the back cover goes back on like so, and it's kind of a little fiddly. Not the most secure of back covers as well, and I think if you're going to be swapping your micro SD cards, that's going to get kind of annoying and kind of fiddly. So power button here is where we have the hang up button, so we just hold down the power button and that starts up. Obviously, as you can see here, this is a test only ROM, but say we do believe this will be the final ROM, or certainly very close to it. So while it's just powering up, quick run down the rest of the spec. I'm going to mention the screen again, 4.3 inch diagonal, capacitive. First Windows mobiles have a capacitive touchscreen, I believe, and it is extremely sensitive. Windows Mobile 6.5, we do have a 1 GHz processor, which is great. It's certainly going to be nice and powerful, hopefully, and certainly good for running your sat nav and also multiple other applications in the background. So that should be good. We also have 512 meg of ROM and 448 megabytes of RAM, so that's pretty cool too, that we've got certainly a decent amount of RAM there. Nice animated startup, as you can see there, and although we're in quite a bright situation here, obviously, so you can see the handset in detail, and obviously there is a certain amount of reflection on the display. The screen is still bright enough and clear enough. I hope you can you can see that there as it's starting up. Rest of the spec then, we have HSPA wireless connectivity, built-in GPS, built-in Wi-Fi, which is 802.11bng, Bluetooth 2.1 with EDR support, and we also have a built-in digital compass, which is again quite cool. The battery is a lithium-ion 1230 mAh battery. If you've already seen some of the comments that I've posted on tracyandmatt.co.uk, you'll know that I'm slightly concerned over the battery life. That's certainly kind of the weakest point of the HD2 in my opinion at the moment. The battery seems to drain fairly quickly. Now that might be because I'm using a lot of the features of the handset and I'm kind of exposing it to a bit of a strenuous load with the screen on continuously, the GPS, the Wi-Fi and so on, but I'm still only getting about a day's worth of use out of that battery, so possibly the battery is a little weak. We also understand that there's already plans for an official extended battery. The hang up button also doubles up as the power button, so we toggle the backlight on and off, and obviously the handset into standby. They used to be on the top, and obviously that's now been done down the bottom here, which takes a little bit getting used to, but that's fine. You kind of get used to that pretty quickly. We also understand that the final retail unit will have a 2 gig micro SD card supplied with it. I guess many people are going to make the obvious comparison to the original HD, which you can see side by side there with a dummy HD unit there. The HD2 being a fair bit larger, certainly longer, and certainly wider, as you can sort of see there. It's certainly wider, and in actual fact it seems to be a little bit thinner. If you can see that there, it does seem to be thinner, and certainly that's, I think, in no small amount due to the fact that the back of the handset is so tapered and rounded. The edges on the front taper inwards and the back is very curved, which means that it sits in your hand quite nicely. And against the other screen that you would probably compare it to, possibly the iPhone, which also has a capacitive screen. But as you can see there, in terms of screen size, the HD2 certainly dwarfs the iPhone, and in overall size it dwarfs the iPhone. So and in terms of thickness, kind of a similar design really in terms of like how rounded and smooth the back is, but that's your comparison there. We'll just have a quick look around the OS, and I'll have a full OS video in a bit more detail on another video. We'll skip all the original startup, and it tells me how to use the on-screen keyboard. As I say, it is capacitive touchscreen, so it's extremely sensitive to even the lightest touch on the display, like so. and if it finds a wireless network, we'll skip that for now, and we'll agree to the Google location, and we'll skip setting up the local time and skip synchronization, and we'll finish the setup. And I can assure you I'm not recording at 4 AM, I just haven't bothered to set the time. So then we see the touch flow interface, and as you can see here we have tabs along the bottom. This we've seen on other handsets recently with the Diamond 2 and the Touch Pro 2 all had this upgrade to Windows Mobile 6.5 have had this type of display. And so obviously we have our home page here, then we have our people where we can add favourites and so on, and then we've got our messages, our mail, then we have internet where we can add favourites, calendar, and I like the calendar display on the new versions of the interface. I like having all the calendar view like that. Then we have our stocks, which I don't want to update. I don't own any stocks, unfortunately, or fortunately. Photos and videos, and we can launch the camera application by just touching the icon at the top there, and that does launch the camera application. And I can put something in the way and take a snap, and the picture quality isn't too bad. I think I've got fingerprints all over the back lens, which yes I have, which will obviously affect the quality, but we'll talk about the actual camera application when it comes to do our full review, and we'll have a look a bit more detail when we come to do a video of the user interface in a bit more detail. We have music and weather. Obviously I don't have an internet connection or Wi-Fi or a SIM card installed, so that's not updating. Then have Twitter, we have footprints, and then finally we have the settings, and we can change all of the settings of the device here with this nicely designed interface here, which HTC have kind of skinned over the top of Windows Mobile, so I don't have to deal with the Windows Mobile interface if I don't want to. But likewise, if I want to go into the Windows Mobile settings menu, I can get to that, and it's all nicely laid out for me like that. And I can go all the way back to the beginning, and getting used to a capacitive screen is strange on a Windows Mobile. I keep wanting to use my fingernails, which don't work, incidentally. It does actually need the centre of your finger. So we can go back to the home screen and go into the start menu, and then we have a series obviously of our staggered icons, which is a Windows Mobile 6.5 standard feature. We have YouTube there already, Internet Explorer, we have Windows Live, Office Mobile, we have camcorder, games, tools, Facebook pre-installed, the Wi-Fi router, which is extremely useful, and we have Bing, Copilot, Opera Browser, and Peep. Peep being HTC's own Twitter client, which is very cool, and that's all nicely laid out there. And if we come back out of there, we can actually customize the home screen here, so we can add in other applications, and we can add in, for example, we can add Facebook as an app. We could also go into here and we can add not only a program, but we could add a contact or a bookmark, and if we're talking to the same person, say our other half, we could add them as a contact on the main screen here, so we don't actually have to go across to people. We can actually just do that straight from the home screen, which is quite a nice idea and very cool. In terms of the rest of the stuff, well, we can change the settings here for home wallpaper, local time settings, weather settings, and so on. And we can obviously get to our phone dialer. And we have nice large keys, obviously on touchscreen, which dials very nicely. And as I say, the touchscreen is extremely sensitive, kind of used to the iPhone, so you know, that's fairly standard to be that sensitive when you have a capacitive screen, but say getting used to that on a Windows Mobile and trying to forget to use your thumb or fingernails rather than actually a screen is then your finger is kind of strange, but say extremely sensitive. Every time I touch the screen, also there is a haptic vibrate from inside, just letting me know that I have keyed properly, and obviously when your phone dials, obviously you get the sound. And if we go into a message application and compose a new message, we have a nice large keypad there, which makes it nice and easy to actually type away and get that just in exactly the right place. So that works quite well. And obviously we can have a little clip here that we can add our attachments and so on. So obviously that is a very, very quick tour of the OS and obviously the handset itself. We will have a full review for you over the next week or so. We'll try and get that out as quickly as possible, because I know so many of you want to know more about the HD2. We think that the launch date is still the 13th of November, although that's subject to change. It's already slipped from the 11th to the 13th, and there are some rumours circulating that it could be as late as the 20th, but hopefully the 13th. We'll try and get our reviews online as soon as possible. I'll have another video shortly which I'll tour the operating system in a bit more detail. I'll show you the browser, and I'll also have a look at the GPS. That will be online on tracyandmatt.co.uk over the next 24 hours or so. And if you're a fan of our unboxing videos, check out the others that we have on unboxings.com. And like I say, keep your eyes peeled on tracyandmatt.co.uk for more news on the HTC HD2.